And we're back for another episode of the Black Lunch Break. We have the pleasure of having EmmoLei Sankofa join us here at Bandwidth Studios. Shout out to Bandwidth, Willpower, Tessa, what's good, Josh Waters. Everybody here at the Bandwidth Studios has allowed the Black Lunch Break to host this episode. We're very, very appreciative of it.
Very appreciative. Very appreciative.
So let's roll into it, man. EmmoLei, I'm so happy to have you here. It's been almost a year.
It has?
It almost has been.
Yeah,
I want to say
crazy.
maybe in like 2 months. I think your supposed episode was supposed to drop in May. So yeah, we're close. We're close to a year, but very happy to have you here.
Crazy.
Yeah, it is. Time.
I feel like it was later than that. Like
I'm trying to think back on the interview now because we've done so many. Like me and Sika was reflecting. It was like 100. We're approaching 100 episodes.
And 10 more episodes.
10 more episodes, right? 100 episodes.
Y'all been working,
And like thinking about it, I'm thinking about your interview, and I'm like, damn, like.
Feels like it was last week, right?
Yeah, but it also feels so long ago. Like it's cause so many interviews in between that or since then, and so I guess it's good to circle back now in a real way. And it's almost like this is great. It's like the parallels that you leveled up. You leveled up, and we've leveled up, and now we get to do an in-person vibe with it, man. So I think it's only right that we get to celebrate you and have this moment, right here at in Atlanta, Georgia, right? So anyway, this is dope though.
Let's kick it off with the first question. What comes to mind when you hear the words "Black with no chaser"?
Raw. Just raw, uncut. Yeah. That's literally
sometimes
raw
it is just cut. Yeah. Yes, that's exactly what we are. And I know with the Black Lunch Break, season 1 to season 2 to season 3, it was like we kind of lost the rawness of it because we had to tend to the political realms of things. Mm-hmm. So now that we are back to like season 3, we're kind of like finding our footing, especially with it just being me and him. And it's actually a smooth ride. I can't complain.
Yeah, because sometimes like when you're doing a show, right, and you could probably attest to this, like it's like when you got too many chiefs or chefs in the kitchen, like it's just a lot. It's a lot to deal with, manage personalities. You know what I mean? But me and Sika have. I feel like, ain't no shade to anybody.
No,
chaser, right?
Absolutely not.
We love y'all.
Beautiful.
But it was just. I think it was a growth moment. We had to decide on how can we scale this and who are we gonna scale it with, and it just so happened that me and Sika, but
we're the ones that were like, let's do this.
So in this year, you scaled tremendously. Like you've done a lot of shit. So from the beginning of the pandemic, did you expect to be doing all of this, or did it happen in the midst of it?
Nah, it's just kind of like, it's even before, it goes back to like before the pandemic. It's like I was preparing for things to grow before I even knew all of this was going to happen. So it's just kind of like, things are just falling into place for me despite what's going on in the world.
Yeah.
And so it's kind of like, it's a weird timing. Like at first I was like, okay, it's weird for everybody else, but stuff is happening for me. So I'm like, okay. And then it's like some of the situations that I was looking forward to is kind of bittersweet even when they happen, because they're not happening the exact way that I imagined them, but they're still kind of happening in their own way. So it's like, okay, cool. But I mean, I'm sure you've seen people kind of say like, when everybody was up, I was here. And now everybody's kind of here, and I'm like, so it's, and everybody's situation is different, but it's still kind of like,
It sounds like the definition of, stay ready so you don't have to get ready. So basically, you were ready for what was going to be coming because you were already in preparation.
Kinda, and it's like something I tweeted the other day. I was like, the whole time, God just had me marinating in the fridge for a few years. It's just like, at times where I felt like I was supposed to be one place. It's like, nah, I gotta season you up a little bit more. Like you're not ready. You know what I'm saying?
Seasoning in the marinade.
You gotta season it up a little bit. So, and I'm still growing. Like I'm just taking it as it's coming.
So being here in Atlanta, was that the plan?
Eventually. I mean, my whole plan, even from like, so when I went to LA, the plan was to come back here. It wasn't the plan to come back in March. I had actually planned to come back like the summer of 2020.
Mm-hmm.
But when COVID hit, I was just like, might as well move now.
Listen to this sign.
Yeah, and even before then,
Damn, COVID, man.
yeah, even before then, there was like this burning thing inside of me that was like, yo, you need to move back. But I wasn't listening, so it was like there were things that were happening in LA that I was like, oh, okay, well, this confirms that I need to stay here a little bit longer. But it was still like, compared to what's transpired since moving back, you know, I guess just when you look at what was happening in LA, it was like, it was a lot of good shit happening, but it was moving slower than I wanted it to.
Everything was, was everything getting ready to be shut down?
I was about to say, like, how's the scene like out there in LA? Because I know, like, obviously, you know, like entertainers, more actors, and that kind of like model industry. But like from a music perspective, like, you know, I live in LA, but you know, obviously, like, there's many people we could point to that came from the LA, like, you know, music scene. But like for you, like, what was some of like the I guess barriers, or kind of like made it harder out in LA than what it is, you know, being here in Atlanta?
I mean, the thing is like, when I left LA, it was literally like my 5th year anniversary there had just happened in February.
Damn.
So it was kind of like my mission was pretty much complete, because when I went out there, I said, I'm going to spend like 5 years here and I'm going to go back. But it was like, it was something that was tugging at me to stay in LA, because I felt like I saw stuff moving and I'm like, okay, shit, like, should I stay here a little bit longer?
Right.
But there was also the part of me was like, stick to the plan, like, stick to the plan. But it was just a mixture of me being hard-headed, just going back and forth, me being hard-headed, but also me wanting to stick to the plan, but me being afraid to come back home, really, because it's like all the people I know are here, family's here, so it's a lot of different distractions and things that I didn't have to deal with in Los Angeles, because I could lock in, I could be locked in for days at a time, and nobody tugging at me. I'm not obligated to nothing, so I was getting shit done. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. But it was like coming here, I was like, okay, and I'm still able to do that. But I think it was like the focus that I had in Los Angeles kind of prepared me to be able to tune the stuff out here when I need to, but also still have the comfort of like the family and everything when I want it, because that was the thing I didn't have in LA. Is like I'm so far away from home. And it's like I'm locked in, but then when I want to, you know, have my family around and just go up the street and be like, yo, what y'all doing? I can't do that because I'm here. It's like you can always catch a flight, but that adds up. But I mean, I built a nice little crew in Los Angeles, which is in large part why it's like easy for me to seamlessly like work between Cali and Atlanta now. So it's like what I built in Los Angeles it really made the transition easier to come here, actually, because now it's like I moved and nothing stopped, really.
Gotcha.
So it's kind of like, okay, I see, and now it's like sometimes you just have to trust the bigger picture, because I felt like moving back would kind of hinder my progress, because because I was doing a lot of film and stuff out in LA too.
Like acting?
No, film, sound, like, so I have a whole company called Bell Sound Collective. Basically, so we do music and sound for visual media. We work with a lot of brands, emerging filmmakers and stuff. And so I was doing a lot of that stuff, but also doing music stuff. So it's kind of like, I don't know, you really got to stick to the plan and just realize like, yo, everything is going to work itself out how it's supposed to. You know, it's just, you have to trust the flow of things.
When you have to tell yourself like, I got to get out of my own way.
Exactly. That's essentially what it was. Yeah.
You know what's so funny though? I think what you're really talking about too is like intuition, right? I think that a lot of it just in this intuitiveness around like knowing when to break ties, and that could be with a city, that could be with a close friend, that could be with a family, it could be anything, right? Anything, anyone, and it's like, I guess what I'm hearing as I listen to you is like, you said it without saying it, there's a certain level of intuition you had, and you knew like, yo, like I could wait another year, or I could have not did this, but it was like, okay, no, this is the moment. And I think that a lot of people really miss their moment because they lack the intuition. And I think that part of it was, you said something dope, is you had an opportunity to detach yourself, to really center yourself so you would come back, right? And it was this moment of like clarity. And I think that now when you can see your moment, you can have these clarifying moments easier. They come easier to you when you're able to, like, it's like you're more centered, right?
Yeah. Become more of a magnet.
Yeah.
The other thing is like, it's kind of like when you start having a lot of successful moments, you start to trust your skills and abilities more. So it's like when you have moments where you trust your intuition and life confirms that was the right decision that you made based on your intuition, it gets easier to recognize when your intuition is strong and when it's speaking to you, and how to follow those moments or not. Because there's a fine line between like your conscience speaking to you and also like shit happening out of fear, or you know what I'm saying? So it's like being able to decipher those moments is really a fine line. So I don't know, it's like, it's kind of crazy, man.
But you just said something there too, though. Like those success moments definitely are. It's important because like that imposter syndrome is so fucking real. You know what I'm saying? And that success kind of does give you that trust within yourself. So once that familiar feeling comes around, you know, you do have a little bit more confidence to keep on going, pushing past that fear.
Yeah, for sure.
Because that shit is, especially in the age of COVID, like I'm pretty sure imposter syndrome has been even stronger than ever before with the arts per se.
Yeah, I've seen it for a lot of people for sure.
But
I feel like the last time I ever had imposter syndrome was 2016.
That was the craziest. That long ago.
Well, because it was just like 2016 for me was like it was maybe 2016. It was a turning point. It was just like a switch that went off in my head, and I was like, bro, what? Like, what is going on? Like, why am I sitting here thinking about this shit? Like, my shit is dope. Like, I'm dope, and it's not even like a cocky thing. It's just something in me. I just realized, like, man. It doesn't matter. Yeah, it doesn't matter like who sees you. Just keep doing what you're doing because it's gonna do what it's gonna do.
We talked about this, man. Like honestly, this is a theme that keeps popping up with like across the board. It's like many people try to create things because they think that they want to create something that other people like, right? Like that. That like instead of creating your sound and having your look or whatever, you like. Yo, should I wear this because I think that so-and-so might think this fly? Or should I have this sound like that because it's like this? Right. It's one thing to draw from inspiration and be inspired by something, but then to develop your whole look, your whole whatever around
authentically you.
On whether or not how you're going to be judged for what you're doing instead of just doing you, because then when you finally do you and you reach that whatever, that another plateau or whatever it is, you like, I ain't got to answer nobody because this me, like, you know what I'm saying? Like, I ain't gotta figure out what pieces I left behind, how I take some of that and morph that into this. And that's really what you're saying is like, yo, I'm doing this for me. And then if whoever loves it, but it's something I think more self-gratifying about, like, this is my sound, this is my shit, like,
and it's not easy to get to that point where you can figure out that I found my sound. That shit is hard to get to.
But it's always evolving though. And that's the thing. That's the thing too, is like I understand more why a lot of artists, like even with Frank Ocean, like for example, he's like big, but he still has this like mystique about him that allows him to continue to experiment. And that's like where people start coming up with like the new shit. Or that's how they stay true to themselves because they have the space and the time to like experiment. Yeah. And that's how you keep evolving. And it's like sometimes that's why you see like people who are just creative in general, they get caught up in like once they get to a certain level. Because I was just watching Bruno Mars and Anderson .Paak on Breakfast Club earlier. And Bruno was talking about the pressure that he felt just like having to beat his last record or his last hit song. And Charlamagne was like, so you giving in to like the pressure of like the industry? And he was like, nah, you know, I'm making music because I like it. But for real, like that was the underlying thing. It's like you get to a certain level and you feel the pressure, but it's like you just gotta stay in the childlike mind. Like you can't you can the pressure definitely keeps you on your toes and it's necessary. But it's still like at some point you have to remove the pressure of trying to like keep up with what people think. So it's like, I want to be my last thing, but I also want to come up with something that I feel good about, regardless of whether or not people get it in the moment. Because it's times where artists have come out with something completely different than what people like, and everybody's like, bro, what the fuck is this? But later down the line, it's like, dang, this shit is crazy. Yeah. And so, I mean, it's a lot of artists that I like that they do that. And it just reminds me, like, to evolve, you have to keep experimenting, because it's like the mind, and Bruno said this too, he was like, the mind I was in when I made 24 Magic. Yeah, he's like, the mindset I was in when I made that, it's like, I'm never going to return to that. So that's why it takes me so long to come up with the next things, because I'm trying to figure out, like, where am I at in this moment? Like, what is this moment telling me to make? Which is, he was telling them, like, how him and Anderson came up with the sound for Silk Sonic. So it's kind of like,
that was a good interview, by the way, though. With Bruno and Anderson back. Like, that was a damn good interview. And even when I love the way Bruno, because, like, of course, you know, in that interview, Charlamagne was, you know, he's a habitual pushbacker. Like, he's like, anytime you find like a crease, you know, and I think that's also been a good interview. So,
for
shout out
sure.
Charlamagne, like, you know, to really pulling out and making you explain and be more clear.
Exactly.
And so he talked about, you know, how even the pressure of this idea that he was stealing from black culture, and you know, and he was like, yo, I always give credit. I tell you what inspired me, and there's nothing wrong with that. And he said, I hope that somebody hears my music and is inspired by it. He said, in fact, if you're not inspired by the music, then what we doing?
Legit.
What we doing? Like, you know what I mean? And so, like, like, who inspires you?
Ooh, it's so many people. You know, I think about that every day, because it's funny that you asked that, because now that we're in this streaming era, it's hard to recall some things because I listen to so much music sometimes. And it's like, I'll stumble across something, I'm like, oh shit, I did listen to that a lot. And I remember, like, damn, this influenced me. So a lot of times I think about Cisco, Music Soul Child, Missy, like, Screamin' Jay Hawkins. I used to listen to a lot of Stevie Wonder, like, fucking Curtis Blow. Like, I was just, because my dad was a DJ. Like, he used to do that on the weekends sometimes. So I would just be going through his record collection.
The good shit.
Yeah, like, I mean, I'm trying to think. Pharrell, you know what I'm saying? My dad randomly bought me an NERD CD for my birthday one time. And when I played it, I was like, yo, it was the Flyer Die album. And I'm like, bro, what? 7th grade. I think I was in 7th grade. He put me on to Gnarls Barkley. My dad put me on to Gnarls Barkley. When I listened to that shit, I was like, bruh, that's crazy. Then when I was listening, I was like, yo, this boy sound familiar. And then when you found out that he was from where you from. Well, see, but the thing is, I already knew CeeLo before, but I didn't realize. I was trying to figure out, like, because I heard, like, when I first heard Gnarls Barkley, I was like, okay, is CeeLo, like, rebranding? But then when I started seeing, like, I think it was Danger Mouse, who was the producer. So it was a duo. It was Danger Mouse and CeeLo. And Danger was doing the production, CeeLo was doing the vocals. So he was, like, the face of Gnarls Barkley.
Got you.
But just, like, the sounds, the lyrics, I was just like, bruh, this shit is just...
it's different.
It just changed my mind.
It makes you feel the music the way that our artists really want you to be receiving their music.
Yeah.
And he doesn't miss that at all. I definitely appreciate artists that is able to convey something like that, because if you are looking for a particular type of feeling, you already know you can go there and you're going to get it.
Yeah.
Versus pressing play on the streaming and just hoping a song is going to be, you know, hitting that feeling that you're looking for.
Yeah, and even like I just did something the other day. I was working on something the other day, just like a little film project, and they were talking about records and the importance of like buying physical releases, and they were just talking about how like, cause I admit I've gotten away from doing physical releases because I felt like the technology's moving away from it. Like, they don't make CD players on computers anymore. They not really putting them in the cars no more.
That shit blew my mind.
And it's like people are having to buy auxiliary equipment just to listen to CDs, let alone vinyls, which is also still blowing up. Like, it's blowing up again, but it's still kind of like not everybody has access to what it takes to invest in that. So it's like trying to just, number one, bring it down to where you're not shelling out hella money to make the physical releases if people not really, if the world's not moving that way. So I'm moving, but it was just like, yo, people can touch this. People buy vinyl just for the artwork. You see what I'm saying?
Oh, for sure. Yep.
Or just, and it's like,
I just did that. That's why it's funny. I just bought some.
Yeah, and it's like, I was like, yo, I need to get vinyl. I need to start releasing vinyl. Because I've never been against it, but I'm just like, nobody wants the vinyl. Like, nobody wants my vinyl. Because but yeah, and so it's like, and the thing is, it's like, when I was doing physical releases, everybody was always like, yo, this artwork, like, because even I would do some crazy artwork on the CD. I should have brought y'all, like, just an example.
I already know, like, it would probably just make me want to buy it just because of the artwork.
Yeah, and it was like, I would spend so much time like just nitpicking at like how the CD looked and just the cover and the back cover. So I'm like, I need to get back to that because people are not always buying it just for the musical moment. It's like the other pieces that are attached to it. And they were saying like, actually Killer Mike said something too the other day. He was like, when with these streaming platforms, you don't actually own the music. You're leasing it. And when you buy it, he said, when you buy this vinyl, when you buy this CD, I could take this home. I own this. I could play this over and over. And if something happens where they snatch all the music down, I still got my collection.
Thanks.
And it's like, even if something happens to where all of this goes down, it's like people have the memory of you, like you're surviving time. It's like a time capsule. Because he was like, yo, something from the 50s, I can look at the artwork and see and feel. It's kind of like a photograph. Like when you're looking at your family members and you look into their eyes and it's like, bruh, I could feel something from this photo. I could feel something from this. Like, I don't know. It's like time traveling. And when I thought about Sankofa and the meaning of Sankofa in terms of like the past, the present, and the future, I'm like, bruh, how did I get away from doing shit like that? Because that's a part of a part of me.
Yes.
That's a part of me. And I'm like, fuck. So now I have to do this. I have to do this.
Okay, so Killer Mike. Let's get into that. Like what happened? How did this happen?
Man, I was on film set working on I can't even say, but I was working on something and he was a guest and you know.
Connections made. Yep. See, you gotta love the beautiful connections like that, cause shit, serendipity is a beautiful thing.
You know,
obviously you can't talk much about it.
It's just a little project I'm working on. Mike was a guest.
Whoopty wow, one thing led to another. Boom, woo, woo.
Yeah, but I mean, that, like, in shooting, he just said a lot of profound stuff about like music in general that just stuck with me. So I'm like, fuck. Even just throughout the day that we were, you know, shooting, I was like, oh, bet this is
like a crash course, getting some lessons from him.
Yeah, but even the history, because the thing is like, essentially, like, the record stores around here and just in general in the United States, they're dying. Not necessarily dying, like, well, I mean, they're not as many as there used to be.
Like, they ain't that many bookstores, you know what I mean?
Right.
So it's like,
and so, when it comes to black-owned record stores, it's like, there's not that many.
There's not. Shout out to Offbeat in Jackson, Mississippi, the only black-owned
right,
store.
which I went home and did even more research because my dad used to be in the record stores all the time, and I was talking to my mom that night, and I thought my dad had gotten rid of all his vinyl, but my mom was like, no, he has stacks and stacks and stacks, and she was like, he just wouldn't part with it because she said what he did was he went and really bought, like when vinyl started phasing out and going to CDs, he just went and bought the CD version of all of those releases.
Smart.
So
is it like so we had just interviewed, our good folks from Zucap, right? And
Okay.
I feel like there's another thing keeps popping up, right, about collecting.
Yeah.
It's like normalizing collecting art, but just like if you want to like kind of broaden the scope a little bit, it's like, I guess what I'm hearing from the conversation is that, look, we got to get back to like really our roots. I think sometimes though, like,
understanding the value of our art.
I feel like sometimes though, on a whole nother like level, that digital platforms who are
yeah, assuming I'm rooting for everybody that's black. Yo, look.
Let me see your chest.
Wobble baby, wobble baby, wobble baby, wobble. Yeah. Wobble baby, wobble baby, wobble baby, wobble. Yeah. Wobble baby, wobble baby, wobble baby, wobble. Yeah. Wobble baby, wobble baby, wobble baby, wobble.
Get it now. Get it now.
This is a human condition, right? This is a human suffering that we're seeing in Portsmouth, in Greene County, in SNCI, in Wilkinson County, all throughout this state, y'all. We've been focusing on Portsmouth, but we cannot forget about all the rest of our brothers and sisters throughout. Do we understand that?
Unapologetically black, capital A, capital F. I love black women. Hennessy, black with no chaser.
What comes to mind is no cut cards. We're not holding back anything as black people, regardless of whatever the struggles, regardless of whatever pain, everything that we pretty much felt in 2020. Black with no chaser represents we not holding nothing back 2021. Everything they said we couldn't get, we coming to get.
Really appreciate y'all. This has been one of the most amazing interviews I've ever done.
Well, I like this Black with No Chaser Radio.